Megan walked through the bustling university town, her eyes scanning the colorful flyers plastered on the lampposts. She needed a part-time job for the holidays, something to keep her busy and maybe even help pay for next semester's books. A smudged note caught her eye: cheerful babysitter needed. She paused, chewing on her lip. It had been a while since she'd cared for anyone but herself. Her friend Isabel waved from across the street, her curly hair bouncing as she approached. "What's up, Meg?" she asked, breathless from her jog. Megan pointed to the flyer. "I'm thinking of babysitting," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and nerves. "You'd be great at it," Isabel exclaimed. "Kids love your energy." Megan shrugged. "It's worth a shot, I guess." The next day, she found herself outside a modern apartment complex, the address from the email matching the sleek building before her. She took a deep breath and knocked on the door, the sound echoing in the quiet hallway. The door swung open to reveal a stunning woman with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. This was Miss Celeste, Ricky's mother and a university professor, known for her aloof demeanor and sharp intellect. Megan felt a sudden flutter in her chest. Miss Celeste looked her over with a critical eye, and Megan couldn't help but feel like she was being sized up. But there was something about her, a hint of sadness beneath the cold exterior, that made Megan want to reach out and comfort her. Ricky, an 8-year-old ball of energy, barreled into the room, and Megan's heart melted. His smile was infectious, and he immediately began chattering away about his day. As Miss Celeste explained the rules and expectations, Megan's eyes kept drifting back to the woman whose beauty was as intimidating as it was mesmerizing. The job itself was straightforward: keep Ricky entertained and safe while Miss Celeste attended to her academic responsibilities. But as the days turned into weeks, Megan found herself drawn to the quiet moments between the laughter and chaos. She'd catch glimpses of Miss Celeste's softer side when she thought no one was looking, the tender way she'd tuck Ricky into bed, the way she'd sigh wistfully at old family photos on the mantel. These moments spoke of a woman yearning for connection, yet fiercely guarding her heart. Megan knew the feeling well. Growing up in a family fractured by her parents' tumultuous relationship had left her with a fear of love that felt as palpable as the chilly air outside. Yet here she was, falling for someone who seemed as untouchable as the stars in the night sky. She'd never felt so alive and so terrified at the same time. The days turned into a dance of emotions for Megan. Each moment with Ricky was a delight, but the anticipation of seeing Miss Celeste was what truly made her heart race. She'd arrive at the apartment with a bag full of crafts and books, eager to fill the space with laughter, hoping it would seep into the corners of Miss Celeste's heart. Ricky was the key to unlocking the door to Miss Celeste's soul, and he didn't even know it. He'd whisper sweet things about Megan to his mother, hoping she'd see what he did, a kind, loving person who could complete their little family. Miss Celeste remained a puzzle, her smile a rare gift that Megan cherished. During a quiet dinner one evening, Ricky excused himself to watch TV, leaving the two women alone at the table. Megan took a deep breath, her hand shaking as she placed a book she'd picked out for Miss Celeste next to her plate. "I saw this and thought you might like it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Miss Celeste looked at her, surprised, but she took the book, her eyes scanning the cover before looking back up with a hint of curiosity. "Thank you," she said, the first genuine warmth Megan had seen in weeks. The conversation flowed more naturally that night, and Megan felt the walls between them slowly crumbling. They talked about the book, their favorite authors, and the stories that had shaped their lives. Megan spoke of her dreams to become a teacher, her love for the way words could heal and connect people. Miss Celeste, for her part, spoke of her passion for her research, the way she hoped to leave a mark on the world of academia. Yet, beneath the professional veneer, Megan heard the longing for something more. One evening, as Miss Celeste was leaving for work, she paused at the door, her hand lingering on the knob. She looked back at Megan, who was helping Ricky with his homework. "Thank you," she said, her eyes meeting Megan's. "For everything." The sincerity in her voice was almost too much to bear, and Megan felt her heart swell. The weeks grew colder, the nights longer. Megan found comfort in the warmth of Miss Celeste's apartment and the gentle rhythm of their evenings. Ricky grew more attached to Megan, and she to him. His laughter became her favorite sound, his questions her favorite puzzles to solve. Yet, the tension between her and Miss Celeste remained, a silent symphony playing just out of earshot. One snowy afternoon, while Ricky was napping, Megan picked up a book from Miss Celeste's shelf. It was a collection of poetry, the pages worn and marked with the evidence of repeated readings. She thumbed through it, feeling the weight of the words and the emotions they held. It was as if she could see Miss Celeste's soul laid bare within the pages. The poem spoke of love, loss, and the fierce need to protect oneself from the pain of abandonment. Megan realized she wasn't the only one with a story etched in caution. As the days grew shorter, so too did Miss Celeste's emotional distance. Little by little, she began to warm to Megan, sharing stories about her own childhood, her hopes for Ricky, and her fears of being a single mother. Megan listened with rapt attention, her heart swelling with empathy for the woman who had become so much more than a boss. She saw the cracks in Miss Celeste's armor, the tender spots just waiting for someone to love. One evening, as Megan read to Ricky, Miss Celeste entered the room, her eyes drawn to the intimate scene before her. Ricky looked up, his eyes wide with excitement. "Mommy, look, Megan's reading my favorite story." He reached out for her, and without thinking, Miss Celeste took a seat beside them, her hand brushing against Megan's. The simple touch sent an electric shock through Megan's body, and she felt a sudden urge to lean into the warmth of the moment. Miss Celeste's gaze remained on the book, but Megan could feel the tension in the air thicken. The words on the pages blurred together as Megan's mind raced with what this could mean. Was it a sign? A crack in the ice that could lead to something more? She glanced at Miss Celeste, whose eyes were focused on the story but whose body was tense with unspoken emotion. The story ended, and Ricky looked up at them with sleepy eyes. "Bedtime," Miss Celeste murmured, standing and gently lifting him into her arms. Megan felt the sudden absence of his warmth next to her, and she knew this was her chance. "Could I?" she began, her voice trailing off. Miss Celeste looked at her, one eyebrow arched in question. "Could I tuck him in tonight?" Megan asked, her voice a little too eager. Miss Celeste hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "If you wish," she said, her voice softer than Megan had ever heard it. She carried Ricky to his room, and Megan followed, her heart beating like a drum in her chest. As they laid him down, Ricky looked up at Megan with a knowing smile. "Mommy," he whispered, "I think you like her." Miss Celeste tucked the covers around him and kissed his forehead before leaving the room. Megan felt the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. She took a deep breath, her eyes lingering on the boy who had become so dear to her. "Good night, Ricky," she said, her voice shaky. "Thank you for sharing your mommy with me." He giggled, his eyes still closed. "Megan," he mumbled sleepily, "I think she likes you too." With those words, he drifted off, leaving Megan to contemplate the implications of his innocent observation. She tiptoed out of the room and found Miss Celeste in the living room, staring out the window at the falling snow. "I should go," Megan said, her voice barely above a whisper. Miss Celeste turned, the room's soft light casting a glow on her features. She looked at Megan, really looked at her, in a way she hadn't before. It was a look of consideration, of curiosity. "Would you like to stay for a cup of tea?" she offered, her tone tentative. Megan's heart skipped a beat. Was this an invitation to more than just a warm beverage? Megan nodded, her eyes never leaving Miss Celeste's as she led the way into the cozy kitchen. The scent of cinnamon filled the air, adding to the warmth that seemed to pulse between them. They sat at the small table, the silence stretching like a tightrope. Megan's palms were damp with nerves, and she struggled to keep her voice steady. "Miss Celeste," she began, "I know this might be weird, but I have to tell you something." Miss Celeste's eyes searched hers, a flicker of fear and anticipation in their depths. Megan took a deep breath. "I've grown really attached to Ricky, and I care about you too." She paused, watching the emotions play out on the professor's face. "But it's more than that. I think I might be falling in love with you." The room seemed to hold its breath. Outside, the snow fell in a silent symphony, each flake a muted whisper echoing Megan's confession. Miss Celeste's expression was unreadable. For a moment, Megan felt as if she had made a terrible mistake, exposed herself too much to a woman who might shatter her heart. But then, Miss Celeste's hand reached across the table, her fingertips grazing Megan's. I don't know how to do this, she admitted, her voice barely above a murmur. I've been so scared of letting anyone in. Megan's heart swelled with understanding. We can learn together, she offered, her voice soft and filled with hope. Miss Celeste's hand curled around hers, the warmth of her touch seeping through Megan's cold, clammy skin. I know it's scary, Megan continued, but I promise, I won't hurt you or Ricky. I just want to be part of your lives. Miss Celeste looked down at their intertwined fingers, her thumb tracing circles on Megan's palm. I believe you, she said finally. But it's not just about being hurt. It's about letting someone else be part of us. I've been so focused on keeping Ricky safe, I forgot what it's like to trust someone else with our happiness. Megan nodded, her eyes welling with empathy. I get it, she said. But sometimes, we need to take risks to find what we truly want. She took a sip of her tea, the warm liquid soothing her nerves. I know I do. And I know that what I want is you, both of you. Miss Celeste's gaze remained on their joined hands. I've built these walls, she murmured. They're so high, I don't know if I can bring them down. Megan reached up and brushed a loose strand of hair from the professor's face, her touch gentle. You don't have to do it alone, she whispered. We can do it together. The silence grew heavier, a palpable force that seemed to thicken the air in the kitchen. Then, Miss Celeste leaned in, her eyes meeting Megan's with a newfound softness. Okay, she murmured, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her lips. Let's try. Megan felt a surge of relief, her chest expanding with hope as she watched Miss Celeste's walls begin to crack. She didn't realize how much she had been holding her breath until she let it out in a rush, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. They sat in quiet contemplation, their joined hands a silent promise of the future they might share.